guards were entitled to the tapes all the time. And of course the guards collected as much evidence as they could. They acquired the Anglo Tapes in 2010, even though they were available for them as were all the documentation from the start of their inquiries. And I don't know of anybody else who has tapes. Just that there was so much talk about the tapes, I thought it would be prudent to write to the chairman of the other banks to tell them that there would possibly be an inquiry, that anything in the way of documentation, including tapes, should be kept protected. I think the practice in the banks is I don't think there's any legal obligation on them to hold documentation, but they hold their documents and any taped conversations in case there's litigation. So they would hold them while the statute of limitations was not in.
You told Pierce Doherty that there'll be an independent person now will look into the leaking of the Anglo Tapes. Can you tell us what is the independent body and what's the time frame there?
The liquidator has decided, it's not my decision, that he's going to inquire into the possibility of the leak, because he's in charge of IBRC now, and he said the inquiry would be into IBRC and KPMG. He's a KPMG person, so there'd be some information available in KPMG, but it's his decision. I was simply informed about it.
Minister, what did you make of what Sinn Féin said in the Dáil today? I mean, Mary Lou McDonald claimed that Alan Dukes had sang dumb when it came to these tapes as regards informing the central bank, etc., and he's a public interest director. And Mary Lou McDonald's not willing to wait for a banking inquiry to get answers for Alan Dukes. She says he should provide those answers now.
Sinn Féin do a bit of shouting and roaring usually, and they were at it again this morning. There was no seriousness in the charges they were laying. Public interest directors under law have no more or no less legal obligations than any other directors of the bank. My interest in this is to ensure that evidence isn't contaminated in any way by unauthorised persons interfering with it or accessing it. So those that are legally entitled to access it should access it, and that principally means the guards in the course of an investigation. You could see what would happen in court if there was a ready and free access by a lot of people to evidence that would be produced subsequently, and you'd immediately have charges of contamination. So we want to avoid that, and that's the purpose, and it's purely prudential of my letters to the chairpersons of the banks now that it looks likely we'll have an inquiry.
What about civil litigants? Do you have a concern there could be civil litigants who have the material?
I have no information that there are. I have no information that there aren't either.
Minister,
but I haven't. Nobody has said that to me, apart from yourself.
Can I just ask, Minister, there's a claim that there's too much emphasis being placed on who leaked the tapes rather than the content of the tapes, and ask for your response to that claim.
There isn't. I put no emphasis on it. I simply reported that the liquidator has his own internal investigation, but I'm putting no emphasis on who leaked it. No.
Minister, when are we likely to get a banking inquiry? What's your best guess on that?
Well, the legislation is proceeded through the Dáil. I think it did a friendship yesterday in the House, and Minister Brendan Howland has charge of the logistics of that, and in due course he'll bring proposals to government, I assume.
Minister, if Alan Dukes knew that the tapes existed, did he not have a moral duty to the government to tell the government that these tapes were there?
No, the guards are the people who investigate crime in this country, and the guards have a statutory right to gather the evidence, and other people shouldn't be mucking around in Garda business, because there is the risk of contaminating evidence, and contaminated evidence is not admissible in court. So it's very important that what happened, that the guards took everything they wanted to take, and then they assessed it, and it provided the basis for the files that prepared for the DPP. That's the normal process.
Are you concerned about the limitations of an Oireachtas inquiry and the nature of the findings it can make against people who aren't elected holders?
We'll see what proposals Minister Howard